Before I get started, I just want to make clear that this is just a quick video with my observations, and by no means do I consider this a complete analysis. So not only is it completely fine and reasonable if you disagree with me, I invite you to do so. So the topic of this video is arguing in the Warriors fandom, and why it is inherently frustrating and difficult, and making an effort often results in a complete waste of energy. And this isn't a problem with just the Warriors fandom or any specific individuals or groups within the fandom. This is just a people problem, and I'm just using the Warrior Cats fandom as an example. Anyways, arguing is hard, especially in fandoms. So I'm going to be giving 3 reasons why discussion in the Warriors fandom can sometimes be terrible. Reason 1. Opinions quickly turn into personal attacks. The thing that makes arguing and disagreeing so hard is how quickly people turn to attacking others when their ego gets threatened. And with Warrior Cats being filled with disgusting characters, that becomes way too easy. You like Rainflower? You must hate children. You think Squirrelflight and Bramblestar are a good pairing? That means you hate women. You like Mapleshade? How could you empathize with a serial killer, you monster? And what this level of argument does is just tear people down. It's perfectly fine to see another person's opinion as wrong, but you just have to separate the fiction from the reality. Liking Mapleshade is not supporting a murderer, because Mapleshade is a fictional cat, and there are reasons to like a character that don't relate to their literal actions. A character such as Bumblestripe can be seen as misogynistic, but that doesn't make people who like him automatically misogynistic, because there are a multitude of ideas you can take from a character, and not everyone pulls the same things. So relax, we are not the equivalent of the characters we enjoy. Which brings me to reason 2. People misunderstand metaphors. Warrior Cats is about cats that do not exist. We are not cats living in the forest, so what we take from these books are metaphors. In the fire scene, we aren't learning a lesson about how killing kits is a bad reaction when we break up with Squirrelflight. Unfortunately, none of us will have the opportunity to date Squirrelflight, so such a lesson is inapplicable to our lives. Instead, we learn a lesson about how we react when we break up, period. Or how we react when we are rejected or hurt, or how destructive the notion of revenge is. Metaphors. So if someone says, I can learn something from Ashfur, they are learning the metaphor, not the literal event. If someone identifies with Ashfur, they've probably felt rejected at one point or another, and had trouble figuring out how to express themselves in a constructive way. And seeing the failure of the fire scene can teach them that pent-up anger can be quite destructive. It's possible to like a bad character and take a positive message from them, and we can thank the power of metaphors for that. But the problem we have in the fandom is that some people don't understand this concept. They just say, Ashfur tried to kill Leafpool's kits, how could you like him? And I just see that level of thinking as very surface level, and we really need to try and dig a little deeper sometimes. Finally, reason 3. People don't realize that it's okay for a single character to be interpreted in multiple ways. In the Warriors books, there is one Leafpool, but in reality, there are thousands and thousands of readers with their own individual thoughts and ideas. So there are also thousands and thousands of Leafpools. Same with every other character. And the main source of argument arises when people decide to start comparing their Leafpools and realize that they don't quite match up. We'll come back to Leafpool. Let's talk Mapleshade for a second. One person's Mapleshade could be a sad and grieving mother, and another person's Mapleshade can be a filthy murderer that deserves nothing. This is where the arguing begins. Because how dare your Mapleshade be different from mine? And this is quite the dilemma, because on one side it's important that we can express different opinions, but on the other side you can't help but feel, hey, that's wrong. And the problem with the Warriors fandom is that we don't often realize that there's enough space in the realm of imagination for both of these maple shades to exist. Now, don't get me wrong, arguing is good. Without it, our personal Leafpool holds no meaning. It's important for us to have opinions and advocate for them, because seeing the differences in other people's Leafpools is eventually what helps us to improve our own personal Leafpools. There's power in celebrating both the similarities and differences in each other's opinions. We can agree on some things and agree to disagree on others. The reason I chose Leafpool as the example here is because of Mothpool shipping, one of the best examples of the fandom taking a character and making it their own. Now, does this ship come into conflict with the books and with the Leaf Crow ship? Oh, absolutely. But the great thing about fiction is that both ships can be equally valid, and both ships can carry meaning for different people. The authors aren't going to come to your house and take your books away because you have a ship that's different from their intention. And no one in the Warriors fandom is taking away your books either. You are free to choose the ship you identify with more. All too often, the Warriors fandom tries to strengthen this hive mind, where every character must be marked as good or bad, and every cat must have one true pairing. But I think we should learn to embrace the gray areas in warrior cats. Breeze Pelt, Ashfur, and Bumblestripe all have bad qualities. But just marking them as bad and moving on doesn't let you see into the complexity that each character carries. And if someone goes as far as seeing these cats in a positive way, there could very well be a good reason for that. It might be hard to line it up with the specific evidence provided in each book, but when it comes to interpreting fiction, the rules are far from strict, so it's hard to pinpoint where that line is drawn. What I'm saying is, we should learn to embrace the many ways that these characters can be interpreted. And sometimes interpretations that are quote-unquote wrong are just complex or even flat out repurposing characters, which should be totally fine. In the words of a random fortune cookie that I got a couple weeks ago, it's not what you know, but what you use of what you know that counts. Why should we force ourselves to have the quote-unquote correct interpretation of these books, when it's much more meaningful for us to interpret them in a way that's most valuable from a personal standpoint? It's possible to discuss and argue about warrior cats without completely shutting other people down. And I think it's important for us to practice that more. Interpreting characters is a form of creative expression, and no one should feel bad for trying to be creative. And before I end the video, I do want to address the counter-argument here. What if someone's interpretation is morally problematic? Like, someone who likes Bumblestripe actually does hate women. And my simple response is, of course I don't support that. That is very wrong. The point I was trying to make in the video is that we are too fast to assume that they are taking these negative messages, when in reality, it's also possible to take positive messages. I hope that makes sense. As I said at the start of the video, these are just quick observations, not a complete analysis. I understand that there may be some flaws in my reasoning, so if you have criticism for me, that's honestly great. I'm far from the smartest person out there. Bye everyone.